Hey everybody, I'm your host Alad, and today I'm reporting to you from the Brooklyn Bridge in New York, where we have the March Against Anti-Semitism. Let's go talk to some people, see what's going on. We're out here today in New York City for the March Against Anti-Semitism. I see you have a shirt that says Zionists do it better.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about why you guys are out here and what you guys are hoping to accomplish?
What channel is this?
I have a YouTube channel. It's called Barely Informed with Alad. I interview people at protests and rallies in the greater New York City area.
Okay. Do you support the BDS movement?
No, I do not.
Okay. What was your question again?
Why are you guys out here today, and what are you hoping to accomplish?
Oh, I'm just out here to show that I oppose anti-Semitism. I guess personally, I would like people to realize that there is a connection between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, and that Israel is the largest collection of Jews in one place, and it is the manifestation of the Jewish right to national self-determination.
Do you think people hold Israel?
There's something else I would like to tell you. When we were a little bit late, and we were meeting. We were at the tail end of the group, and as we were waiting to start walking, someone drove by on their bicycle and said, "Israel sucks." But this is a march against anti-Semitism. It's not even about Israel. So why did this man think to say that? Because they are related, and Israel is basically just a big bunch of Jews.
So I want to follow up on that because we were mentioning BDS and stuff like that. Do you think BDS is outrightly anti-Semitic?
Yes.
And we were also talking about the rise in these anti-Semitic sentiments. Who do you think's helped perpetrating those anti-Semitic feelings?
I don't know. Lots of people.
Yeah. Because I know in America we're pointing a lot of fingers at a lot of different people. Some people like to point the finger at Donald Trump. Some people like to point the finger at some progressive congresswomen like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Do you think those accusations hold weight on either side?
Modern anti-Semitism is triple-pronged. There is a progressive, liberal end to it, there is a white supremacist end to it, and there is an Islamist end to it.
And which do you think is the biggest threat to Jews, if any? Because I know specifically to the white supremacist one, we had a couple of horrible mass shootings in places of worship, specifically against the Jews. But then we're also seeing progressives being strongly against Israel. I know we see these progressive congresswomen also, being very unsympathetic towards things like the Holocaust and bringing up common anti-Semitic tropes. So, who's giving it to us the worst? What anti-Semitism should we worry about the most, and how do we fight that?
Well, I don't think it's really about who's doing it the worst. Okay. I would like to point out that only hating Jews brings together these three different groups. And you can have the left, the progressive wing of California's Democratic Party supporting the same positions that Hamas support, which is 7 million refugees and their descendants of Palestine to be made as citizens of Israel, which would, make Jews a minority in the state of Israel and effectively end Israel. But then you also have David Duke supporting Ilhan Omar. So only Jew hatred gets this bizarre group of three different groups that all hate each other, really. It unifies them.
It's amazing that they could rally around Jew hatred.
It is. It's not so amazing. Jews have been scapegoats for 3,500 years.
I see you have a sign over here that says oppose anti-Semitism. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you guys are out here, what you're hoping to achieve?
I mean, the Jewish people are God's chosen people, and Israel is God's chosen land. It's the place he said he wanted to be. And there's just been such an increase again in anti-Semitism. You had California, you had Pittsburgh, you have what's going on in other countries, France. I mean, I've been all over Europe. There's swastikas all over the ground. And I mean, if not now, when? Somebody's got to do something and stand up and say what's right. Everyone's afraid to come, I understand, but you got to do what's right and take your chances and praise God. Hope he protects you, and if not, just be happy with his will and accept it and be blessed.
Yeah. So I'm glad you were able to run down the list of different anti-Semitic events that are going down. How can we stop those? Who are the leaders, do you think, of the groups helping make these attacks more common or helping pushing that thought process of anti-Semitism on people?
I think there's a lot of fault to go all around. I think there's a lot of things that happened in the recent past that led us down the road to hate each other, not just anti-Semitism, but hate between a lot of different groups. And I think that's spilled over and I think it was called for in the Bible that we're going to go this way, but I'm still going to do my part and, bless my people, and I will bless you.
And it's also interesting because we're hearing Democrats talk about anti-Semitism all the time and Republicans talk about anti-Semitism all the time. Do you think these politicians are just using anti-Semitism to kind of earn political points?
Many of them, yes. I mean, there's some people who've been in office for decades, and you can see they bring up this rhetoric whenever it's convenient for them, and then suddenly they do nothing when it's time for action. So, I mean, we've seen some real action recently. We've seen the... Sorry, I got capital in my head. We've seen the...
It's okay. I could follow up, though. Just on this final question. So the President of the United States, Donald Trump, do you think he's been generally a good pro-Jew president, good for the Jewish people? We have the opposed anti-Semitism stuff. So do you think he's been able to help quell that stuff at all?
I don't know if he's been able to quell it. I mean, it's hard to turn a tide once it starts, but I think he's been one of the best we've had in a couple of decades, probably at least. And if he can do more, he's going in the right direction, and either it's going to get a little better or it's going to get a little worse, or it's going to move forward with biblical prophecy, and it doesn't matter anyway then.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Just to finish up, was there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. I really appreciate it. I see you guys are wearing shirts over here. It says oppose anti-Semitism. Your sign also says that. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you guys are out here, what you guys are hoping to achieve?
Well, we want to show that we're totally against anti-Semitism. As Christian believers believing in Yeshua, that we are against what everyone is doing against the Jewish people. And for centuries, not just today what's happening, but for the centuries of how they've been persecuted throughout the years.
Yeah, I know with anti-Semitism recently, a lot of people are pointing a lot of different fingers at a lot of people. Some people are pointing the finger at Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. Some people are pointing the finger at Donald Trump. Some people are pointing the finger at anti-Semitic Muslim majority countries in the Middle East. Where do you think a lot of this anti-Semitism, the focus of it, is coming? And how would we fight it?
I just think that standing by the Jewish people would be a lot more better than being against them. They are God's people, God's chosen, and that's how we want to represent today, and that's why we're here.
Sure. And are there any specific politicians that you think are enabling anti-Semitism in any way?
We're not a political organization. We're not here for political statements.
Sure. No, but there has to be leadership. There are leaders, right, who are stoking those flames.
As many times as you want to. We're not here as a political organization. We're not commenting on specific politicians or anything like that. That is not what we're here for.
Okay. What about specific proposals? So, yeah. What about BDS? Do you think BDS is anti-Semitic?
I think BDS is extremely anti-Semitic. Their purpose of BDS is to destroy the state of Israel.
Yeah. So Ilhan Omar brought a bill for that to the floor, but you're not specifically
specific. No, I'm not discussing any specific politicians.
So we're out here today. I see you have a sign over here. It says oppose anti-Semitism. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you guys are out here for, what you guys are trying to achieve?
So I'm a Christian, and I believe in Israel. I believe in their right to exist as a state. I believe that they have been there for thousands of years, and they need to have the same protections as everybody else. The right to exist, the right to, defend themselves and things like that. And I don't believe that them defending their right to defend themselves is a reason to then attack them.
Yeah. Do you think there are any recent anti-Semitic attacks that you could point to, and specifically you're saying, like, there's a lot of anti-Semitic attacks coming from here, being caused by such and such, or like, who do you think stoking these anti-Semitic flames?
Let me think about that. So obviously there was the attack on the synagogue in the Midwest. I can't remember exactly where that was.
There was one in Pittsburgh and then one somewhere in California.
Okay, all right. So what's stoking that?
Because a lot of people, for the far right wing, the white supremacist anti-Semitism that we're seeing, a lot of people are blaming Donald Trump. A lot of people are saying Donald Trump isn't responsible. Do you think Donald Trump is in any way responsible for the increase in anti-Semitic attacks that we're seeing, both across the U.S. and specifically in Williamsburg here as well?
Absolutely not. We saw what happened with the, I think it was a senator or congressperson that got shot based on rhetoric, right? We saw him get shot, and they said, no, it's not based on rhetoric, right? They didn't blame Bernie Sanders, for example. Then we saw what happened with someone firebombed a Planned Parenthood recently, and they said, oh, no, that wasn't rhetoric right there. So if by that, if them doing those things based on that type of rhetoric had nothing to do with the people who were speaking that rhetoric, then I don't think that Trump is actually causing anything like that by the same measure.
Yeah. Hey everybody, I hope you guys are enjoying the video. If you're really enjoying it, hit up my PayPal, hit up my Patreon, it'll be in the description. Support independent media, support independent journalism, and enjoy the rest of the show. So we're out here today for the March Against Anti-Semitism. Can you tell me a little bit more about what your goals are here and what it means for you guys to be out here?
Yeah, we're concerned about the rising anti-Semitism in our country. We've seen the anti-Semitic crimes increase about 50% over the last couple of years. We've seen the rise of fear in the Jewish communities of Europe, of Paris, and other parts of Europe. We've seen an emigration of French Jews, from France to Israel and America over the past few years. It was up to 10,000 a year at one point. I'm not sure it's still there. So there was a concern there. There seems to be a growing insecurity in some of the Jewish communities, and we also see the rising tide here in America, and with Pittsburgh and Squirrel Hill and San Diego and the shootings there, and we felt that something needed to be said, something needed to be done, that Jews and Christians needed to rise up and say that this is wrong. That we're not going to stand for this. That being anti-Semitic is not cool. Being anti-Semitic is not right. Being anti-Semitic is evil, and we're going to call it what it is. Yeah. And we feel that historically that we need to do this because it wasn't done when anti-Semitism was rising in the late 19th century and early 20th century, and that people weren't standing up and speaking out against it, and we felt that we don't want to repeat the same mistake. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up a lot of specific different events. I wanted to follow up and ask you, though, a lot of people are pinpointing the finger at other politicians and other leaders for being responsible for different anti-Semitic attacks. People are pointing at Donald Trump, calling him anti-Semitic. People are pointing the finger at Rashida Tlaib, calling her anti-Semitic. They're pointing the finger at Ilhan Omar doing BDS stuff and calling her anti-Semitic. Are you crediting the anti-Semitism to any one of these people individually, or do you think these politicians are just using anti-Semitism as kind of a political tool to earn political points?
No, I don't think that it's a result of politicians what they're doing right now.
Anti-Semitism has been around long before Trump, before Ilhan, before all of them.
I think there's an undercurrent of it. I think it's been there, for a long time. I think it rises and its ugly head periodically, like it did at the beginning of the 20th century and so forth, late 19th century, early 20th century. We see. It's starting to happen now. It's not full blown like that. I'm not comparing this to the times of Hitler, but we see it starting to grow here. We want to nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
We want to say this far and no farther. It's not going to happen in our watch. We're going to stand up and speak out against it. We're not blaming any politicians. There are kooks on the left. There are kooks on the right. They're always going to be there.
Anti-Semitism of every flavor.
Absolutely, and we're not zeroing in on that. We're zeroing in on the evil itself. And we're going to say as Jews and as Christians and as anybody who wants to join us, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, secular people, anybody, join us and against this particular evil.
Yeah. I also wanted to follow up and ask, last week Ilhan Omar was bringing a bill sponsoring BDS. It was strongly condemned. What do you think about BDS?
There seems to be a lot of sort of anti-Semitic tropes that are attached to the BDS movement and people there, and it makes me very nervous. I know that they think that it's a sort of a pro-Palestinian move, and that's the reason why they're doing it. But I tend to think that sometimes anti-Zionism is a cover for anti-Semitism.
It definitely seems that all anti-Semites act as anti-Zionists. Not all anti-Zionists are anti-Semites, though. Okay. But it's a good place for, if you're an anti-Semite, why not join the club of being
right? It gives you some cover. It gives you some cover. If you're an anti-Semite, the anti-Zionist movement can give you some cover.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're saying is that what it does do in effect is isolates Israel, and we think Israel is a force for good in the world, not a force for evil.
Yeah. Do you think they're held to a double standard or a separate standard that like other countries are held to? Because I know in the UN we're constantly condemning Israel for a bunch of different human rights violations. Do you think we should be singling them out?
I don't understand why Israel, which is a liberal democracy,
the only one in the area too.
Yeah, the only one in the area, and who gives freedom and equal rights to all of their citizens, is being singled out,
including Arabs.
Including Arabs, exactly, and they're being singled out, as the bad guys when there is horrors being perpetuated around the world and in very dark places.
So why do you think that is?
As I said before, I think there for some reason there has been an undercurrent of anti-Semitism in this world for a long time, and sometimes it looks like anti-Judaism, like our speaker said, and sometimes it just comes out as anti-Semitism, But I wish I could explain it. I wish I understood it fully. It seems to me that the Jewish people have only been a blessing, mostly a blessing to the world around them.
We're out here today. We're on the Brooklyn Bridge right now for the March Against Anti-Semitism. You have a sign that says "Oppose Anti-Semitism."
I do.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you guys are out here for and what you're hoping to accomplish?
Well, I mean, I heard about this through a friend of mine, and I don't want to speak on behalf of any group, but
Why you're here?
right. So what I heard was this was a march to oppose anti-Semitism, and I took it, on those terms. So I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone or any group or any idea beyond that.
Yeah, we have a lot of anti-Semitic sentiments rising worldwide, in the United States, in Europe, in the Middle East. Who do you think's helping stoke those feelings of anti-Semitism?
I mean, that depends on who you're talking about, whether it is Donald Trump or whether it is, Ilhan or whoever. They just come at it from different viewpoints, and some of it is not really, that they're committed to it. It sells. So they're
Do you
like,
think
hey.
they're using anti-Semitism to just earn political points?
Some of them do, yeah. I mean, it's a complicated thing here because they don't like being overtly anti-Semitic because that doesn't quite sell. But, kind of being cutesy with it.
A lot of
does.
dog whistles, like
Yeah,
some
yeah.
things that only the people who
This
would
is a
know
very polite
understand.
society, so people here don't like being explicitly anything. They don't like being explicitly racist or anti-Semitic or whatever. So they'll just say that, black people are like dogs or fleas, kind of trying to be cute about it.
Yeah. So I know a couple of congresswomen, specifically now I'm talking about Rashida Tlaib and now specifically Ilhan Omar, they brought a bill to the House last week trying to bring up BDS. Do you think BDS is anti-Semitic? Do you think BDS is a good thing that we should work on? Because the House condemned it. It didn't pass at all. But what are your feelings on it?
You're entitled to have an opinion, whether I like your opinion or not. If you want to say you're gonna, boycott Israel, rock and roll. I don't really care. But when it comes down to like the brass tacks, how are you gonna do it? That's when the harder conversations start, because how are you going to boycott? What are you gonna boycott? Which companies? How? Right. And I find that when you get into that, that's where the conversation kind of ends, because it's like a concept. It's not a concrete reality.
I know the people who originally organized BDS, there was also anti-Semitic sentiment there, so that's part of it. But just in conclusion, was there anything else you want to mention?
Oh no, nothing. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. I really
Take
appreciate
care.
it. Thank you.
No problem.
Have a good one. So we're out here today at the March Against Anti-Semitism. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you're out here and what it means for you to be out here?
Okay, so I'm not Jewish people, but I'm a journalist. I'm atheist, but I think anti-Semitism is the most unfair thing in the world, and no matter if you are Jewish or not Jewish, you gotta stand out of these things. Because it's a hate, it's a racism. Anti-Semitism is a kind of racism. So we gotta say no to all drops of racism, all pieces of racism, and including anti-Semitism. That's why I'm here. I'm from Philadelphia.
Yeah. Are there any recent anti-Semitic events that you could point to and say, I think this person's doing something anti-Semitic and there is this leadership that's doing something anti-Semitic?
Of course, in Congress we know all the names. It's Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, and the most basic issue in this situation that is most of American don't care about this. They think it's okay to say bad things about Jewish culture and Jewish people because we will never meet again a Holocaust catastrophic. But that's not right position. If we keep the silence about anti-Semitism, it supports to problematic points of people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar.
I want to follow up on that point. They definitely say very bad things. They're sympathetic towards groups like Hamas, and they say anti-Semitic things and use anti-Semitic tropes often. Do you think the Democratic leadership is in any way responsible for not holding these individual small progressive candidates and really making their voices overheard in some sense? Because it's only a few people, right?
That's what I'm talking about. This is a big problem. We think most of Americans think it's not a big deal, but it's a big deal. And the first big deal for the Democratic Party, they can lose supporters because everyone who see in the Congress Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, they can stop to support Democratic Party and go to Trump.
Yeah.
Or maybe skip skip the election and Trump win again. If you want this, okay, you will get it. You will get it in 1 hour.
Some people also say Trump's anti-Semitic, though, because a lot of people also they say white supremacy is related to Trump, and there've been a couple of mass shootings at places of worship, one in Pittsburgh and then one in California. So there's also this other brand of anti-Semitism. Do you think Donald Trump's encouraging any of that stuff?
Maybe not. Maybe Donald Trump is a person not anti-Semitic, but from two parties, Republican and Democratic, white supremacists choose Republicans. And we gotta do with something, and Donald Trump gotta do with something with this. White supremacists must be outsiders of the parties. But this situation is 150 years ago, Republican was who free people from slave. Now KKK and white supremacists return to Republican Party. It's a mix in the heads of a lot of people. We are talking about bigotry. This is the point.
Let me pull you out a little.
Can I dance?
Yeah, dance through it. Let me know when we're good. So we're out here today at the March Against Anti-Semitism. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you're out here, what it means for you to be out here?
God called Abram and said, go. So we are here because this is God's chosen land, chosen people. And, Jesus was Jewish. And as a follower of Yeshua, I also want to support Israel.
Yeah. So I know we're seeing the rise in anti-Semitism worldwide, and a lot of people in the U.S. are pointing the fingers at a lot of different people, including Donald Trump. They're pointing the finger at. They're saying Ilhan Omar. They're saying Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Do you agree with that? Who do you think we could point the finger at? Do you think there are people who are stoking these anti-Semitic flames?
I think we should only point our finger at ourselves, because if we want to change in the world, we have to be the one to do it.
Yeah. Everybody's an individual and are responsible for their own actions.
Exactly. And when individuals come together, you have something beautiful like this.
Yeah. I know Ilhan Omar specifically brought forth a bill last week supporting BDS. That's the boycott, divest in Israel. What do you think about BDS?
I'm not too familiar to comment on it. I know that there is some stirring up of these actions. Anything that is in opposition to God's chosen people to represent their freedom, speech and freedom of expression of religion. These were the beginning practices of Hitler to boycott the businesses. So,
well, BDS was started by anti-Semites, but I also wanted to follow up on that part about Israel. Do you think that we are able to criticize the government in Israel without being called anti-Semitic?
I mean, we all can find criticisms in everything, so of course, but I'm sure they're doing the best and trying to do the best for the state.
Do you think there's unfair criticisms of Israel, like that we're holding them to a double standard in a lot of cases?
I mean, it depends on the person, we should vote for the people that we think will do best and hope for the best.
Absolutely. Was there anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, I believe that Yeshua will come back to Israel as the chosen land, Jerusalem, and is crying out, and may God bless Israel and the Jewish people.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
I don't want to do these anymore. Do it. Okay. Hey everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. If this is your first time here, guys, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you really enjoyed the video, hit up my PayPal, hit up my Patreon, support independent media, independent journalism. The details will be in the description. Until next time, stay barely informed.